welcome to the MCTV News Weekly Update. I'm Brittany Jelinski.
And I'm Allie Reed. We've got a lot in store for you tonight, so let's jump into today's top story. This past Sunday was 64th Primetime Emmy Awards, which was hosted by Jimmy Kimmel. It was Kimmel's first time hosting, and his dialogue consisted of classic jokes making fun of fellow actors and actresses. The big winners included Modern Family, who brought home the award for Best Comedy for the third year in a row, and Homeland, who won the award for Best Drama. Longtime winner Jon Stewart's The Daily Show won its 10th consecutive Emmy for Best Variety Show, and The Amazing Race won its 9th Emmy in 10 years for Best Reality Show. One of the biggest shocks of the night came when Jon Cryer of 2.5 Men beat out Jim Parsons of The Big Bang Theory, who was going for his third consecutive win as Best Comic Actor. One of the notable highlights of the night was when Jimmy Kimmel instructed viewers to go on Facebook or Twitter to write something like, quote, "OMG, Tracy Morgan just passed out at the Emmys. Turn on ABC now," to create buzz and obtain more viewers. After this, he had Tracy Morgan lie on stage for about 10 minutes. Overall, the Emmys did not disappoint.
You know, Allie, I'm so upset that I missed the Emmys.
I did too, so it's totally fine.
I love Jimmy Kimmel, and I didn't even know he was hosting.
It would have been hilarious to just turn on at that moment when Tracy Morgan was just laying on the stage.
Yeah.
I'd been like, especially if I hadn't looked on Twitter or Facebook too, you'd just be like, oh my God.
What did I miss? Oh no. Well, in other big news from this weekend includes the sale of the long-awaited iPhone 5. It's a new iPhone sales record for Apple, but investors aren't finding the latest news satisfying. Apple announced more than 5 million iPhone 5s were sold since the device hit stores Friday. That beat the old sales record of 4 million iPhone 4Ss sold during the last year's first weekend. However, it is hard to compete with the two because the iPhone 5 is released in 2 more countries than the 4S. But despite the iPhone frenzy, investors viewed the opening weekend as somewhat of a disappointment. Wall Street analysts had anticipated the sales figure to be closer to 6 million, but Apple CEO Tim Cook said he was pleased with the results.
I personally did not get the iPhone 5. I have the 4S. I got it in May. I really don't need a 5.
Same. I got the iPhone 4 like 2 weeks ago, and I actually heard that the GS does everything that the 5 does, only better. So
yeah. And there's another update for them already. It's ridiculous, and it changes everything apparently, makes it more compatible, and the Maps is different. Just like on the 5, the Maps is no longer Google, and then apparently Siri's got a lot more updates, but I like Siri the way she is.
It's fine. It's just too much too soon. I don't think we can handle it yet.
In other technological news, Californians could see Google's driverless cars on the road soon. The governor was scheduled to sign a bill at Google's headquarters on Tuesday. It is expected that the bill is making the company's car street legal. Google's self-driving car has computer-controlled pedals and steering which can be guided by cameras, GPS, and other sensors. Someone has to still pay attention and be able to take over if needed. Once the bill is signed, the DMV will have to draft rules for the public testing and expand the definition of vehicle operator to include someone who causes the technology to engage.
Speaking of the DMV, the New Jersey Motor Vehicle Commission recently issued a statement requesting that people getting their photo taken for driver's licenses should refrain from smiling. As if waiting at the DMV wasn't boring enough, the state is now requesting that neutral expressions be used in photographs because face recognition technology can't read smiles. While most people won't have much trouble keeping a straight face after waiting in those endless DMV lines, others who like to save their driver's licenses are upset. The statement was issued in hopes of reducing fraudulent use of state services and to combat identity theft. While New Jersey isn't the first place to bring glamorous license pictures to the public's attention, driving the Garden State just got a bit more serious. And actually, as a native from New Jersey, I can say that I'm very upset with this because I like my license picture and I like that I was smiling in it.
Yeah, I know. From Connecticut, we don't have that law, but every once in a while I'll show my license to someone and they'll be like, "Oh my God, you're smiling." I'll be like, "Yeah, I just passed my test. Why would I not be excited about that?" They're like, "I can't believe you're smiling. We couldn't smile." It's like, that seems a little
That's a little too
harsh.
much for a 17-year-old who just got their driver's license.
That's exciting. That's a big moment.
It is.
Another story that is causing a bit of social unrest is coming via tweets. A war on Twitter recently broke out after instrumentalist Jeff Barrow from Electric Beats began harshly criticizing Amy Winehouse after saying her voice was fake and her range unrealistic. Barrow's criticism went viral within hours, and they were being viewed by the public. His tweets, quote, "I'm sure she was a lovely, caring, talented person. I didn't know her. Very sad that she passed away, but I never dug her vibe." The argument now is whether or not Barrow had gone too far. Was simply expressing his opinion too offensive? Barrow is known to be very particular about the few female artists that he does like, but many people have not reacted positively to all his negative commentary.
A war of a different kind has been raging this country for years now, and soon citizens might see a bit of reprieve. The Supreme Court could announce on Tuesday whether it will take up same-sex marriage in two separate cases. One involves a New York woman who was sued saying federal law unfairly treats same-sex couples who are lawfully married in their states. She says she had to pay federal taxes on her wife's estate after she died because at the time New York State did not recognize her out-of-state marriage. A California case centers on the state's voter-approved ban on the same-sex marriage. If the justices take the cases, oral arguments, and an eventual ruling wouldn't happen until next year.
I think this is a big step. Now that it's Supreme Court season again, I think it's amazing that they're taking these cases.
And I think citizens will be following these cases so much just because same-sex marriage is going to play such an important role in the election this year.
Yeah, exactly, especially because the candidates have very different views and the voters are going to be very, very vigilant on what they're voting for.
Yes, definitely.
This next governmental story is one that is out of this world, literally. President Obama is going up, up, and up. We're not talking about polls, we're talking about the launch of his bobblehead into space. Janine Moose reports on this stratospheric bobbling.
It's one thing to send your 4-year-old son's favorite toy train into the stratosphere. Attached to a weather balloon and a camera, the balloon eventually pops. The train falls back to Earth, but what do they think of next?
Liftoff.
To launch into space.
President's here.
It's Bobblehead Astronaut Obama in a wild descent 20 miles above California. You added a little extra glue to make sure his head didn't fly off.
That's right. It's not presidential to lose your head in space.
Actually, he did lose it once upon impact.
Obama lost his head.
They found it there in the mud flats.
Yeah, we got down to the boxer shorts.
Got a little muddy.
But Sean Dable isn't a mudslinger against Obama. A group of around 8 supporters launched the presidential bobblehead to raise money for him, putting the flight to the music from E.T. The idea was to promote yard sales for Obama. Note the bobblehead's picket fence, the yard sales, where supporters sold their stuff, raised only a few $1,000s, but Bobblehead Obama was raised 100,000 feet. A helium balloon lifted a platform which held the cameras and the bobblehead. Up they went above the Golden Gate Bridge, through the clouds, and then with the Earth's curvature behind him, the helium balloon burst as expected at that altitude. A parachute deployed and the bobblehead floated to Earth, landing 30 miles from the launch site. 5 times they launched Bobblehead Obama. Several missions were flops. One landed in the Pacific Ocean. Naturally, they made modifications to add buoyancy.
These are just pool noodles that we got.
Presidential pool noodles. The final video is a compilation of the best footage from the 5 flights. Bobblehead Obama returned to Earth with one visible nick on his neck, the result of excessive bobbling.
Right there, you can kind of see that his head as it banged into it.
The president got dinged, but candidates tend to become experts at nodding and spinning. Ginny Mo, CNN, New York.
Although he may not be headed to space, Obama did travel pretty far this past week. President Obama had a busy Tuesday with speeches at the United Nations and the Clinton Global Initiative. Jessica Yellen tells us how he sees the opportunity to share U.S. ideals on a global stage.
President Obama used the world stage to declare,
The attacks on the civilians in Benghazi were attacks on America. There should be no doubt that we will be relentless in tracking down the killers and bringing them to justice.
his most expansive comments on what he called the crisis in the Middle East. He invoked the memory of one fallen American.
We must reaffirm that our future will be determined by people like Chris Stevens and not by his killers. Today, we must declare that this violence and intolerance has no place among our United Nations.
To the world, he offered a lesson in U.S. values, first denouncing the inciting video.
The crude and disgusting video sparked outrage throughout the Muslim world.
Next, affirming America's embrace of all religions.
We not only respect the freedom of religion, we have laws that protect individuals from being harmed because of how they look or what they believe.
Then a lesson in tolerance and the freedom of expression.
Like me, the majority of Americans are Christian, and yet we do not ban blasphemy against our most sacred beliefs. I accept that people are going to call me awful things every day. And I will always defend their right to do so.
Seeing an inflection point after the Arab Spring, the president called on the world's leaders to champion the same values.
There is no speech that justifies mindless violence. There are no words that excuse the killing of innocents. There's no video that justifies an attack on an embassy.
And President Obama resisted campaign season pressure to intensify his rhetoric against Iran. Instead, he reiterated in stark terms his commitment to diplomacy and consequences if that fails.
Nuclear-armed Iran is not a challenge that can be contained. It would threaten the elimination of Israel. The United States will do what we must to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon.
After his remarks, he crossed town to the Clinton Global Initiative, where he addressed an issue with potential appeal to evangelical and women voters, human sex trafficking.
That's slavery. It is barbaric, and it is evil, and it has no place in a civilized world.
While Obama was meeting with various international figures, his competition was having meetings themselves. Presidential candidate Mitt Romney held a meeting with his running mate Paul Ryan this past Tuesday. This partnership has sparked a bit more faith in the Romney campaign. The only problem seems to be that voters are backing Ryan more than Romney. Even though this may seem like a good thing for the two, it may cause some problems that voters are supporting their ticket because of the vice presidential candidate. Ryan is known for being able to draw thousands to rallies, while Romney is known for making comments that he may wish he didn't. With Romney's recent statements, the Republican ticket has taken one step forward with Ryan as his partner, but also 2 steps backwards. According to the voters, it seems that Ryan is able to make people more fired up about Romney's message than Romney himself. However, the good news is that now the two are finally starting to work together again. After meeting with each other on Tuesday, they are starting to plan how to get their numbers back up, especially in the swing state of Ohio. The best move the Republican Party made recently seems to have been the addition of Ryan to the ticket. Orlando, Florida rally member Jackie Sullivan said, quote, "Ryan speaks the truth, and he gives us facts. The Republican Party is getting hopeful that the new team effort will be able to help them win the election."
Hope may be in the campaign, but in Thailand tonight, it was a different story. The flooding in Thailand's eastern Prachinburi province on Monday worsened as the day went on, with runoff flowing into several districts, raising floodwater level to nearly 2 meters in some areas. Runoff water from adjacent Sekeu province and Koai National Park is blamed for the worsening situation. Water levels in the districts Kabin-Buri and Shiri Mahafot rose to 1.9 meters. Business center of Shiri Mahafot is inundated with 1 meter deep water, paralyzing the whole town. Many parts of the province have cut off access by small vehicles. At least 19 villages in Prachinburi are still underwater, with at least 3,000 people affected. The water is also expected to gradually recede after sluice gates were raised higher to speed the drainage of water on Monday. The local administration says that in the north, over 1,500 residents of Phichit suffered devastating floods, prompting provincial authorities to speed up relief efforts. In Phitsanulok, 7 districts have been declared flood-hit areas as the water level in the Yam River is still increasing, raising fear of shortage of clean drinking water. Meanwhile, Bangkok Governor Sakhumhand Paribatra inspected a flood control center. He said Bangkok authorities had closely monitored the water drainage system. He provided assurances that the army would do its best to help people. However, he emphasized that nothing could be done to prevent the rain, and thus steps should be taken to prepare the drainage system to cope with additional water if more heavy rains hit the area. The governor admitted that the existing system might take a long time to drain in case of heavy downpours of over 60 millimeters per hour, which is exactly what happened several times during the past week.
It's really sad when something like this happens. Like it's Katrina and it's Irene and all those natural disasters. It just, my heart goes out to them.
I know, just hearing this story is just so devastating because you hear it and you just feel so bad, but
there's nothing you
can do. And it's like the governor said, he can't control if it rains more, if it doesn't rain more.
And like that's how their systems are set up, so it's not like they can do much about it. Well, that's pretty much all we have for you guys tonight. I'm Allie Reed.
And I'm Brittany Jelinski. Thanks for stopping by.